Hi everyone, I'm Shelly from There's No Place Like Home at redheadmom8.wordpress.com. Over the next several weeks, I'm going to be sharing with you the 4 main large family homeschool hacks that we use in our house. There are a lot of homeschool hacks that we use, but the 4 that I'm going to be discussing are the ones that really help me to keep my sanity homeschooling 10 kids. So this week I'm going to be talking about how I group and alternate my kids. Next week, I'm going to be talking about uncomplicated unit studies. The following week, I'll be talking about read alouds and notebooking. And then the last week, I'll be talking about just focusing on the 3 R's and following interests. So for today's grouping and alternating, I just want to start out saying that a lot of times people think of large families as anything above like 3 kids, which, to most people, that is a big family. And a lot of times what they tell people who have multiple children that one of the easiest things you can do when you homeschool is to teach your kids together. And it makes sense, it saves time, and a lot of things don't need to be taught separately. And yeah, usually the 3 R's need to be taught separately. But things like social studies and science and art, that can all be easily integrated with different age levels. The problem becomes when you have, say, maybe more than 4 kids, okay? If you're having, like, say, from 5 or even more kids than that, it can get a little bit hard to homeschool so many kids at one time. It can be a little bit crazy at times. And that's what I found, because I actually, the unit studies that we've been using, a lot of them say you can use them from kindergarten through 8th grade. One of them in the past that I used even say kindergarten through 12th grade. And I was like, oh, that's great. I can homeschool everybody together. But it didn't work out because I'm not a classroom teacher. I'm a homeschool teacher, and one of the biggest things for me is being able to give individual attention to my kids while they're learning, and it just can't happen when you've got a really large number of your own kids together. And like I said, this is for like mega families, like extra large families. But this homeschool hack could even work if you have like 4 kids. So anyway, getting to what it actually is I still do teach my kids together, but I don't teach all of them together. I actually break my kids into groups. I have the littles, the middles, and the teens. Now, and really, you can group your kids however you feel is best. I thought it was easiest to do that way because my littles are around the same level with things, and my middles, same thing, and my teens are pretty much independent. So that's like my easiest group because my teens just do most of their work on their own and occasionally need help with math. So I'm not really going to be talking much about my teens today because they are a group, but they're a group that I'm not really hands-on with anymore. They've reached that point where they can do things on their own for the most part. But my littles are my almost 6-year-old, my 7-year-old, and my 8-year-old. And then my middles are my 9, 11, and 12-year-olds. So what I do with grouping is I will take my littles and I do all of their homeschooling first. I do their read aloud first, and then I do their individual table time with them first. I work one-on-one with each one and then while one child is working on, say, their phonics and math, the other 2 kids will usually be working in the busy bins that I referred to in one of my other videos. It's just little activity bins that I put together to keep them occupied. And my middles at this point are usually just upstairs playing or doing whatever. I don't give them a specific thing to do because their homeschooling time hasn't specifically started just yet. Although sometimes they will help with the 3-year-old. I forgot. I do include my 3-year-old in the littles, but I don't make her do anything. I ask her if she'd like to be included or if she would like to work in her notebook. And if she says yes, then I do her at this time. If not, it's fine. She's 3. Well, okay, she's almost 4 now, but she doesn't need to do school just yet. Not at least in my opinion. So anyway, as I was saying, so then I just do their one-on-one time at the table, and then we sometimes will work on their notebooks, depending on what day it is, and other times we will work on a unit study. I do 5 in a row with them. And 5 in a row, yes, it's meant to be used 5 days a week consecutively, and that's not how we use it, and I'll explain that in just a few minutes. But moving on then to my middles, after I'm completely finished with the littles, I move on to my middles then. And we do everything exactly as I did with the littles. We start out with read aloud, and then I do one-on-one table time with them. And while one child is doing their table time, the other two are doing either their silent reading or their notebooking. And then, depending on what day it is, we will work on their unit study together. And another thing that we do is we alternate, because I started out doing the unit studies every day with the littles, and I also did unit studies every day with the middles. And what I found was that we weren't getting done with school until like 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Since I used to be an unschooler, I have grown to see the value in what happens in everyday life. Kids are fantastic at learning on their own. They don't need us to direct everything that they do. So what I have started to do, I'd say mostly this past year actually, is I now alternate my kids. So for example, on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, my littles will just do their 3 R's, and then they will have the rest of the day to just explore their interests. They can pretty much do whatever they want, because at this age they're really good at finding things that they like to do. And yeah, they're learning in all of this. And a lot of times I will also do notebooking with them on this day, but for the most part, on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, my littles are just focusing on the 3 R's. Okay, and I will talk about that in a future video. But the other days, Tuesdays and Thursdays, they're doing the 3 R's, and then they're doing their 5 in a row. So it actually takes me 2 weeks to complete one 5 in a row story, and I only do it for 4 days rather than 5. I always have to be different. And then for my middles, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, they do their 3 R's, and then they also do their unit study that day. And then Tuesdays and Thursdays, they focus on their 3 R's, and then they just do some notebooking on their own. And it's really a good way to keep your homeschool manageable. It helps to keep it from taking all day long, and it really gives your kids the time that they need to find out what they're interested in. Because yes, I love to do unit studies with my kids, and I love to give them ideas of what to learn. But I think that a lot of times, especially with kids in school, if they don't have enough time to go out there and find out what they really are interested in, they're going to lose that joy in learning. So you really want to keep that in your homeschool. And this is a great way to do it. If you have more than one group of kids, try alternating them a little bit. One day they will do what I would call a full day, and then the next day 3 R's. Full day, next day 3 R's. And so far, it's really worked great in my house. And you'd be amazed. A lot of people would think, oh, she's only doing phonics and math with her kids on that school day. But no, because my kids, they're playing games, and they're outside looking for worms, and they're reading books to each other, and they're playing house. And yeah, playing house is school, especially for the littles like that, because they're exploring family relationships that way. So just keep this option in mind if you have an extra large family like I do. Next week, I'm going to talk to you about how I use uncomplicated unit studies. Yes, that's the key word, uncomplicated unit studies. I hope you have a great weekend.